Hello, Miss Michelle Gray. How are you doing? And how's my boy Eric?
I'm doing good, and your boy Erik is doing awesome. He
That's
says, "Hi,
great.
Mama. I love you. I love you so much."
Oh, I love you too. All right, we're going to talk about Nancy Pelosi. This is by community demand and her trip to Taiwan. Very timely here. So I guess we're going to probably channel Pelosi's higher self, maybe.
Erik said that her higher self is here. He's going to bring forward the information, but he says it's coming through the higher self as well, because he says a little bit that will come forward about Pelosi as well.
Okay, I've not read any of these questions. They're all from community members, and I don't know what side of the aisle they're on. So do not shoot the messenger, please, if you don't like the answers. Okay, first question. Why did Nancy Pelosi decide to take this trip?
Well, Erik says, okay, he goes, so we'll break it into three components. He says, so why did she take the trip? He goes, yeah, there's, because he says there's a lot of people that feel that there's personal gain to it. There is some personal gain to it. He says, business, personal business, as well as, he says like a corporation, like big business, buying, selling, trading, big business. And he also says, this is like he says, like on the spiritual level, this is like a notch in the belt that needed to happen. This needed to happen for what is to come.
Okay, well, this is interesting because I'm seeing here in her trip to Taiwan her trip to Taiwan really about her husband's investments in the semiconductor sector or market. Taiwan is said to be the leading producer of semiconductors in the world, and that it's basically used in products we use every day. Is this the reason China wants full control of Taiwan? If they can control the manufacturing of semiconductor material, then they can definitely control the world, this person says.
Well, that's part of it. Erik says that's part of it. Yes, he says it's really not one straight answer. It's really not one. That is a big reason. He says, let's really get to the meat and potatoes of this, everybody. He says this boils down to money.
Yeah,
boils right down to money. And he says what is really happening here is something that many of us already know, suspect, but he says we have to remember that we're playing this out in a physical reality. So we really have to untangle a really big mess. And he says, and the really big mess is that politics has always been like the cover for big business, for big corporation.
yeah.
And he says, and this, he's calling it the situation at hand that we're experiencing, not only for the US, but he says around the world, because it's affecting everyone, just as Ukraine affects everyone. There's change for everybody. But he says this is necessary because this is part of that big untangling. Because he says, although we are not at the root of it completely, we are getting right into it now.
Okay, when you say it's about money, money for whom? For Nancy Pelosi, for our government, for?
Well, he says, yes, there's, he says, a lot of the people that are in government, and he goes, and guys, this is not about picking sides. He goes,
Yeah.
yes, we're talking about Nancy Pelosi today, but this isn't about whether you like Nancy Pelosi or not. This isn't about who you like or don't like as a president, because he goes, we're at a point now in consciousness where it can't be about who you like and who you don't like, because on any side of the parties, he says that this is the biggest problem of our political system is that it has always been about money and has become more about money, about the he says we'll call them the upper crust. It's sometimes referred to as the 1%. He says it's about how much money is being squeezed out of our nation, squeezed out of, okay, that's true. Slow down. He's going real fast. He says it's about money versus compassion, because he says, look at our world, and look at the individual, the families, the
Yeah.
many people around this world that he says that bust their ass every day. And he says, and then no matter how hard they work,
Never
he
get.
says, the grocery prices grow, this grows, this is, so he says, that's why this is that deep part, that deep root to say, these things are happening to expose what we have always known,
Yeah.
and really to bring it right out in the front where it can't be hidden anymore.
Oh, good. All right. Does this trip have anything to do with Nancy Pelosi's sole interest or life purpose? I mean, was this trip preordained or an act of free will?
Well, he says every act, every choice is free will. Like there's nothing that we do that is not our free will.
Well, that makes
Is
sense.
it something? Is it something that preordained, meaning that it needed to happen? He goes, well, let's explain it this way. When we are, because we have multiple timelines that are existing at one time, and he says it's always the path of least resistance to get to the point that we need to create something better. And he says that doesn't mean that the path of least resistance is the easiest. So
Oh,
he says, is Nancy Pelosi the candidate, the one that was the given the ability to take action or to do something that would be like pulling the cork off the bottle?
hmm.
Is she the one? So he says there is a personal, meaning like her own soul purpose, and this is about taking responsibility, um taking responsibility for her decisions, decisions that are made that, oh, I'm being smoked out here. decisions decisions that are being made, um and accepting that responsibility regardless of how this unfolds. And also, he says for the collective, it's going to bring forward forgiveness as well, because he says regardless of, does it need to happen, did it need to happen, he says, well, yes, could it have been somebody else other than her? Well, she was the one that was in, he says, the perfect temperature, the perfect time and place to be able to create this. And he
Oh,
says, and because it is important that it was directly connected to China.
oh, interesting. And then why did she make her trip such public knowledge? Did she want to make sure everyone would know just in case something should happen to her?
He says there was a little bit of a, so there's something where it kind of came out, like something was made knowledge, so it was like, now I have to spill it all out.
Yeah.
So he says it didn't really start out that way,
Oh, yeah.
but then it became knowledge, and he says, and there's a bit of ego to it as well, a little bit of ego.
Okay. Why did she defy Biden and go? Is she working for peace?
He says again, this boils down to um, money and compassion. Does she believe she's working for peace? Yes,
Okay.
but that's her belief. That's her belief of working for peace. Is the actions that she's taking really ultimately for peace? He goes, it will lead to that eventually, but that's not really what her, in her mind. It's like, I don't see this as being a big harm.
Well, what does she think now that China is reacting the way it is militarily?
Um, he says that um, there's some regret, but it's not regret that is being like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. None of
Oh,
that's
okay.
being said. It's more like, you know, oh, that's interesting. They're looking at what the benefit could be to this. Like, he says, let's look at this as kids in the playground where, I've got the biggest bike, I've got the fastest bike, I've got the, because he's talking about like boats in the water, like military, like, and saying, the US is like, well, what exactly do they have? And what, like, what intelligence, what are they sharing that maybe they wouldn't have had this not have happened? So they are spinning it in that direction. Is there regret that she's done this? Yes. And um, he's saying about relationships. So one of her biggest lessons in this life is about relationships. So this may be affecting some relationships, um, colleagues, maybe some personal relationships as well.
Okay. Interesting. Well, Biden, why did he not want her to go? And why is he seemingly soft on China? Like he stopped the China initiative. He wants to end the trade and tariffs and all that stuff. Does China have dirt on Joe and Hunter Biden that makes Joe afraid to clamp down on China for fear of being exposed of some crimes?
Eric said there is some stuff on Hunter Biden. That's not the main part of it. He says that like the president is not necessarily the one that's calling the shots. It's like he's repeating what's being said to him, like for him to say. When it comes to China, like his reaction to her going, saying, "I don't think you should go," is like him putting up a flag to China to make it look like he's not part of this. And so
Oh,
Eric says there's some like some underbelly to this.
oh,
So he says, because remember, he goes, let's not choose sides.
yeah.
Remember, they're all over the place, is how he's saying it.
Would China have done this if Biden were not in office, if we had had a stronger president in office?
Eric said that regardless, it still needed to come to the surface.
Okay. Is Pelosi's trip a result from the video meeting that Biden had with Xi Jinping? That's a fun name to say. Xi Jinping.
No. Eric's not saying that it really is. No.
Okay.
Maybe her. Um. Uh, um. He's not saying there's business. But it's not just in Taiwan. Like there's some other business around.
Okay.
So I don't know if there was like some other meetings that have taken place, because it's like something that they're carrying around, like a conversation they're carrying around
Okay.
to different leaders.
Oh, like Singapore, South Korea. Yeah. Okay.
But not the only thing. So that wasn't like
Yeah. Okay. We believe in the one China rule, and our country apparently doesn't believe that Taiwan should be independent. What do you think from a spirit's perspective?
Eric says, from the spiritual perspective, he says the way that it's looked at is as if China is like the parent and Taiwan is like the teenager.
Okay.
That has decided to like, I don't want to be part of you. I want to do my own thing. I'm going to move out into my own apartment, do things my own way, and I don't want your help. But yet they're not okay with cutting off all ties. They don't want to cut off all ties.
But give me an allowance.
Exactly. He said,
I
there's
hate
like
you,
this.
but will you take me to the mall?
Yes. So he says, from a spiritual perspective, whether we're talking about humanity or we're talking about the individual, about a human being, a country, the earth, he says there is a will, there is a consciousness, there is a collective consciousness, a choice. And so the way that we see it as a necessity of playing out unity does not always mean that we have to be married together under the same law or the same word or the same flag.
Well, the time, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna, and this might be what you're gonna ask, because he's just starting to say that, as things unfold over time, he says, and we have to also understand, he says, for a lot of people to hear this, they may think that this is unrealistic. And he says, and for the belief of many people, we're still in a space where belief to things becoming easier is still a very far jump for them. And that's okay. Erik says that's okay. It takes time to get there. But he says we're actually a lot closer than what we think we are.
Okay.
That belief creating reality is very important for our consciousness to get to that point. So he says Taiwan and China, there is opportunity for there to be a new marriage.
Okay.
A new
positive
marriage.
one?
Yes.
All right. So,
but he says there's a lot that has to be dealt with first. He goes, if they are, he keeps using like family situations, but if they are a couple that have gotten divorced, they're in separation, and he says there needs to be a lot of mediation take place.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. What is I think we already answered this. What is her purpose of being in Taiwan when we have people in place dealing with foreign affairs? Is she the ringleader over Joe and Kamala? Well, I mean, one of the reasons is business, semiconductor stuff, right? So not just foreign affairs.
Business, and also Erik says, there is a part of her that she like humanities, like standing up for people.
Okay.
It's not necessarily that all there believe that they need that. But he says it's kind of like, I'm good at this. This is my thing. I've always stood for this. So here, I will do this. I will do this.
Interesting. What will be the consequence of Nancy's landing in Taiwan? China said the USA will pay for this. I would like to know how these decisions will contribute or not, or maybe soon conflict. Or maybe soon conflict.
So Erik says, we're starting to see that right now. He says, what we are facing at this point is a lot of fear tactic. He says, like a lot of
bluster.
Yes. And Erik says, and remember, we said we're going to see a lot of this come out. We're going to see things like you'll pay for this, and there's going to be big problems. And he says, and there's going to be more threat that will come, but he shows it going downwards. So he says it's going to get quiet before it comes back up again, because it will come back up again. But Erik is not showing me that there is war.
Okay.
He's not showing me that. So
will China eventually invade and take over Taiwan?
He says that there is a plan for that. That is what they're thinking towards, but there's no action plan to do that. So he says what's happening right now is almost like role playing.
Oh,
there's no actual action ready to take place. He
Dress
also says
rehearsal.
they're very patient. They're also
I know they're really good at seeing the long game and abiding by that. What is the percent chance of them invading Taiwan before Biden leaves office? Quantum probability,
Okay, so Erik says, for the sake of putting a percentage on it, we'll say there's about 30-35% chance.
Right? Okay. All right. Of course, here when it's 35% rain, it rains. But we need more rain. Okay, on the Joe Rogan show, they discussed that her father was involved with the mafia. Is that true?
Erik answers it like involved. Okay, we could say yes. How involved is another story. maybe not quite in the way that, like he's not saying in the mafia.
Oh,
But
not
he-
part of the mafia, but had some sort of alliance or dealing.
There's some, now Eric's also saying that this is part of what when we talk about the 1% and we talk about a lot of the control around the world, is that those are those pockets of what we would refer to as mafia, cartel, all of that are a very big part of it.
Yeah, of the 1%.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, second part of that question, is there a history of corruption in her family line?
There's a history of service. He says a history of service. He says corruption, there's a history of making money. There's a history of making decisions that are for the betterment of sometimes of the family or for their own gain, is how
Okay.
he's saying it.
And we're not necessarily talking about Nancy, we're talking about basically in her family. Okay.
Yeah.
Has Nancy, oh my God, this person doesn't like her. Has Nancy Pelosi deceived her country and joined groups that don't have America's best interest in their actions? Complicated.
She is, Eric says the best way to answer it is that she's not knowingly joining another alliance.
Okay. She's not knowingly saying, I'm going to join this group, even though it's going to make America worse off.
Right.
Okay, good. China recently stated in an announcement that they expect Biden to keep his agreements with them over Taiwan. Is that why China has given millions to the Bidens?
Can you say that again?
Yes. China recently stated in an announcement that they expect Biden to keep his agreements with them over Taiwan. Is that why is that why China has given millions to the Bidens?
Eric says that's part of it. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
When will Nancy Pelosi be removed from her job? Again, this person does not like her. She's 82 or something. I mean, she needs to go and have some fun. Retire.
What Eric is showing me is her own removal.
Okay, she'll just retire. Okay, will that be within the next couple of years or?
Yeah, because what Eric is showing is that it's this it's the next ones that come in that are going to be rebuilding, that are the rebuilding. So it's the pulling apart of this one, and she doesn't go forward in the next.
Okay, so maybe the Democrats lose the House, and so they put the House Speaker is going to be a Republican.
He's not saying that. He says it's going to shuffle in a way that we might not expect.
Oh, interesting.
That's how he's saying it. So
okay. What past life influenced this one?
oh, that's interesting. I love those
I
questions.
love it too.
Okay, so he's showing me Venezuela, 1840s, like mid 18th century. Okay, so she's male. What he's saying is that she was part of it's government. It's like there was like a trying to put government together. He's saying like Venezuela, like the Latin America is like everything's splitting, is what
Okay.
he's showing me, and trying to put government together. She's male, and she was representing tradition and trying to uphold the Catholic Church
Okay.
within the government.
Mhm.
He's also saying that this was a time of violence. It was a time of like it wasn't he says it wasn't everybody sitting around at a table having a conversation. He
Well,
says
yeah, moment. Yeah.
it was a bit of a destructive time.
Okay.
And in that she had lost her life in that time,
Oh, okay.
or he, like
Yeah.
Nancy was a he,
Yeah.
had lost his life in that time. The reason why he's showing me that is he says that some of what was like cellular within that lifetime came into this lifetime with upholding, he says, tradition, upholding um, faith, Catholicism,
Catholic faith. Yeah. Mhm.
Catholic faith. Um, and he also said uh, of building, because he says at that time it was not the most important to be for the people. It was be for the people on top and then segregate the people here. So it wasn't exactly a very positive
Oh,
situation.
okay. Was anybody famous politician part of that life with her?
He's say a consi, what is it? A consi, I don't even know what word that is. It sounds like it sounds Spanish,
Consigliero?
something like that.
Oh,
But
okay. Okay.
no, I don't, not that I
No.
recognize.
Okay. What is her true relationship with Trump spiritually? Interesting.
Well, he's saying that they actually represent, they're catalysts.
Yeah.
He said spiritually, their souls incarnated into this life to be a catalyst and to be mirrors, as well as triggers. And he says, and they've both done a very good job at that.
All right, great. Let's see. Last one. Will the next president be able to fix the harm, another person, not a fan, that has been done, or is it good to have a corrupt government so it shows showing its true colors? So I guess it's a two-part question. Will the next president undo? I guess they're talking about inflation and so much violence going on in the world and crime and the border and all that.
And Erik said yes, but he says he wants to make sure to say it in a way that he says, the repair is happening right now, but it's actually happening through us. So he wants us to remember that, because we've been in society for so long, looking at heads of state, looking at government, having like this level of individuals in control.
Yeah.
And no matter what generation we've been in, it's always been there.
Yeah.
And so he says, we're moving from a very archaic and heavy physical energy that is then moving, he says, like a fifth dimensional energy, which is more about our leadership and about putting humanity first and the mind second, like running through compassion.
Oh, okay.
Because why that's important to explain is because, is it the corruptness, is that something we need to see? He goes, yes, we do need to see it, because he says, think of, again, he's using a relationship. He goes, think of, you're in a relationship and your partner is not being faithful and, is doing all these things behind your back. And you've got this good intent of trying to repair your relationship and trying to make things better, but you're like running in a hamster wheel over and over, and you just can't understand why things aren't adding up. And
Yeah.
then finally, a situation occurs that it might be so painful and heartbreaking, but the situation occurs to expose the fact that your partner has been unfaithful, has been with somebody else, and then everything comes up to the surface. And he says, and as hard as it may be,
It's
it
better in the
allows
long run.
you, that's right, it's better in the long run. And he says, that's exactly what's happening here.
Okay.
But what we have to understand is, he says, it's ours. And why he brought up the belief is, he says, it is upon us to be able to focus ourselves and to allow ourselves to see the bigger picture, but also stand in for what we believe, to really be discerning, to do all the things that Erik says we've talked about for a long time, to prepare. One thing he wants to add, he says, prepare that there may be problems. We're already seeing some with shortages, with
Yeah.
products, with things like that. He goes, prepare yourself, get what you need, have medication in advance if you can get it. Do things like that, because there are going to be some challenges that we're going to walk through. But will the next government, or he says the leaders, the guidance that comes in, be able to fix this? He goes, we're already fixing it by what we're going through. So yes, the answer is
Okay.
yes.
All right, good. All right. Is there anything else, Michelle, you or Eric want to ask on this topic of Nancy Pelosi and of Taiwan, China, Biden, etc.?
Um, not really. Like Eric's, like he said to me when we first started, because I was like, politics is not my favorite
Sure.
thing to do about, but what I always find interesting, because Eric always works with me to bring it right to the heart of everything, right
Yeah,
to the spiritual, the heart. And I think that's really important for all of us to remember, is that, there really is a bigger picture to this,
yeah,
and we are multidimensional. And so we don't have to be on one side or the other. And,
yeah,
and to really keep in mind, there can be more than one truth at one time. It
that's
doesn't have to be black or white. And
that's right.
to really keep that in mind, and that will really help us move through this period.
Okay.
So thanks,
The
Erik.
main thing here is sunlight is the best disinfectant. And
Yes,
the sunlight may show a bunch of roaches coming out of every crevice of your
yes,
house, but
yes,
then
yes.
they're out there to
That's
extinguish.
very true. And I'll just add, I had a session with somebody this week that told me something really interesting, and Erik is just expanding on it, about how the sun, how us personally going out into the sun for even 10 minutes a day is so important, because that's how we're getting a lot of our cellular downloads, is
Oh,
our cells are expanding out in the sun. And so, when we're sitting inside or we're not getting out in the sun, we're not getting the full advantage of what we're able to. So
yeah,
he's just reminding all of us, as we go through all of these changes, he says, get out and get into a little bit of sunshine. Just give
right.
yourself a little bit, because it will really help our consciousness expansion and all of the changes that are going on. It's
Yeah,
all part of it.
interesting. All right. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi, Higher Self, and thank you, Michelle at the healing h-art.com. Remember, I used to have trouble with that, but no more. All right, guys, be sure you
Okay.
share this video with people who you think might be interested in it. And if you don't want to miss another one, smash that notification button. Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
Erik says, love you.
I love you. Love you.
Love you. Bye.